Got into a very minor disagreement with Texans commenter, the beloved Texans commenter earlier today, where one of those classic things where we were arguing about the same thing but two separate things, and it was my fault. It was my fault because it was about EJ Speed, and I've seen various people say that they think that EJ Speed's contract and the way the Texans structured it leads them to believe that, okay, boy, the Texans have big plans for EJ Speed, or that he might actually be a starter. And there's a lot to like about EJ Speed. So this is not me bashing on him whatsoever. We've watched him have some really good games versus the Texans. He's come up in some big moments. He is very fast, makes a lot of plays behind the line of scrimmage. Watch him right here as he comes into the screen, making tackles in the open field. There's very much a sideline to sideline element about him that I really like. So I think he's going to fit in just fine. I know that he's had his scuffles with CJ on social media and whatnot. They are friends. That's mostly been in good fun, and I don't think that's not any concern if anybody is still worried about that. I really like the way he plays. I like that he likes to get deep into the backfield of the opponent. The big question about him, as it is with other Texans linebackers, is how good is he in coverage? And that's the thing that's really kept him from being a complete linebacker. And the Colts defense last year struggled some, but he does some really good things. It's undeniable. The question with any linebacker that comes into the Texans is, all right, how can this guy be with DeMeco Ryans' tutelage? Can he get the very best out of him? Can he get more of a Fred Warner type when it comes to coverage? You can see he's not ideal size, but if you're not relying on him every single down, then that's not really a concern. I think he is going to get playing time this year. I mean, just a little bit of physicality there as he shook off the running back, stacked and shed like he was a linebacker to make the play. I like him a lot. I think this is the thing, because I've seen this and people have asked me this. His contract is not a contract that to me says, oh yeah, they're planning on him being a starter. It's a 1-year deal. It's $3.5 million, I believe. And the incentives are what people will point out. Just by way of illustration, these are his incentives. Per game active bonus of $14,705. Performance incentives of 88% snaps. He gets $500,000, 90% snaps, $500,000. Pro Bowl, $500,000. Those not likely to be earned incentives, the 88% and the 90% snaps, those have zero to do with what a team feels like they expect a guy to do. That's based completely and totally on the fact that for it to be a not likely to be earned incentive, the player can't have done it the previous year. And last year he had 87% snaps. So yes, if he came in and he did start every game like he did last year, he'd probably end up having more than that and he would earn those incentives. But that's just the way it's structured, and that way it doesn't count against the cap unless the player ends up achieving that. Then it counts against next year's cap. So this isn't Texans commenter that was saying it. It was just I've seen it and people have asked me this, and I just wanted to clear that up. I think this contract is very much a, hey, let's get him in the building. Let's see what he can do. He fits in really well with what the current linebackers play like. Let's play a little quiz game so you can see. These are PFF grades of some of the current linebackers and then EJ Speed. And take PFF grades with a grain of salt. But when they match the eyeball test, then you start to see a theme. Here they are. Christian Harris, EJ Speed. Down there on the right, the lower right-hand corner, 46.3% coverage grade. Henry To'oTo'o, 55.4%. Azeez Al-Shaair, 59.7%. And Christian Harris was low as well. In Christian Harris, I think that was his career coverage grade. That's one that he has the most upside and the most potential in pass coverage. If you just base it on physical skills, it's really a question of, okay, if he's healthy, can he build on what DeMeco taught him last year? We saw a huge leap in performance in 2023. That's my big question. And with EJ Speed, with Christian Harris, with Henry To'oTo'o, with Azeez Al-Shaair, I think To'oTo'o and Azeez Al-Shaair are always going to have a natural limit on just how good they can be in coverage. With EJ Speed or with Christian Harris, I think there's more upside there. And in this defense really makes it difficult on the linebackers because they invite all the action inside. You've got those defensive ends crashing on the outside, forcing the run into the middle. And then the linebackers are in that boat where they got to stuff the run, but they also got to get out to the flats for their pass coverage responsibility. So some of those coverage grades, and this is something that PFF fails at sometimes. It's impossible for them to take into account the difficulty of the scheme, and there's more difficulty for those guys in some regards. A lot of it with Henry To'oTo'o is there's certain times where still recognizing routes, reading routes of tight ends, the run pass keys, all of that. That's where he needs to continue to advance. A couple years ago in the Colts game, in that play-in game especially, I thought that the Texans linebackers did about as good a job as they could have, given that those guys are hardwired to come up and make sticks behind the line of scrimmage. They get tackles for a loss. It's awesome. The Texans defense had the most tackles for a loss in the league last year, top 3. But you got to learn how to find that balance. And in the Colts game, in the play-in game, they gave up and conceded a lot of rush yardage. But part of that, I think, was they were probably having it drilled in their head. Just keep your depth. We got to worry about these RPOs and everything else that comes with it. Texans were one of the bottom third of the league against tight ends last year in coverage. It's really the one big weak spot on the defense right now that I'm most concerned about. EJ Speed, if he really latches on to D'Amico's system, could end up being the best version of himself. He was a special teams player his first couple of years, got better, ended up becoming a full-time starter. There's a lot to like about him. He's a football junkie, I think, like so many other guys on that defense. But we'll wait and see. I think a Texans commenter, I'm going to go on I'm going to let him interview me or something for his channel here in a little bit. Where is he on our depth chart? Back up somewhere right now, and then we'll see. The classic Nick Caserio, get him in the building, and then we'll see what happens. Let's see. These are big brain cap moves. As far as the actual NLTBEs, that's not a big deal. There's a lot of those. Like, you look around the Texans contracts, that's the other part where I think people saw those incentives and they thought, oh, that, I don't know, because they were brought up or somebody tweeted about them. I have no idea. Those are unremarkable set incentives. Those are just NLBTEs, not likely to be earned incentives that are in a lot of the contracts on that. If you go to Spot Track and look at their contracts, yeah, EJ is LB 2 through 4. Guess we'll see. And he could end up starting. Texans commenter isn't wrong that he could end up starting. He very much could. I think that given what he's done in the past, I'd be surprised if, because he has weaknesses in coverage, he doesn't add something to the Texans linebacking core that they're severely lacking right now. And I don't think they're going to give up on the young guys for a guy on a 1-year contract. I think they still like the upside of Henry To'oTo'o and Christian Harris, but it's very possible that he just earns the starting job. I think the competition dynamic is very real. Seems like D'Amico's defensive structure is D-line and CB quarterbacks who can stop the pass and LBs who focus on the run. I think it's fair to say, ideally, in some ways, coaches who come out of New England or came out of the old New England were spoiled by having Tom Brady as their quarterback, and they didn't quite realize how hard it is to operate when you don't have Tom Brady as your quarterback. Sound familiar? I think that with D'Amico, in some respects, he was spoiled by having Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw and guys that can make life easier for everybody else around him, because Fred Warner is so rangy and he's so football intelligent that he makes a lot of things work. And it's not look, the Texans were a good defense last year. It's just that's one area where they really, if they could take a leap forward with how their linebackers cover, then that's a huge advance in being able to beat various teams in the playoffs, the good offenses. What is your opinion about the installation of the new fullback system, and what are your thoughts about Jacob Johnson? I don't know if I would call it a fullback system. I think that they're gonna they'd like to be able to use the fullbacks, and I think they're probably in a genuine competition between Jacob Johnson and British Brooks. Jacob Johnson has the advantage in experience. I think British Brooks has the advantage in versatility and perhaps being able to use him as a running back, depending on what the injury situation is at running back. I'd give the nod to Jacob Johnson at this point, but I guess fullback. I guess I don't know exactly what you mean by fullback system, other than that they probably plan on being able to use a fullback. Biggest thing in the modern NFL is that you got to be able to be a receiver as well and catch passes out of the backfield. So, Jacob Johnson's got a lot more experience at the position. Speed seems like a pretty solid specialty. A very good point. Very good point. Could be because if the linebackers can stop the run, then the DEs and cornerbacks can focus on what they do best. Well, part of that too is it's because you align the ends in a wide 9 position so often where they're cocked out wide, it allows them to just get off the ball and get upfield. And their run responsibilities a lot of times are just, all right, it's not a pass. I'm going to crash in on that offensive tackle and squeeze things and force everything into the middle. Seth, I feel that a very overlooked outlook on the offense is that if they can turn 70 penalties into 50 penalties, they'll be able to produce noticeably better. Think about that. Think about that third quarter drive in the Chiefs game. I mean, they took about 35 yards of steps backward because of penalty in that. They should have reviewed one of the plays. I think when Xavier Hutchinson would have gotten a first down and they didn't review it like that. That was an awesome drive that really should have taken fewer snaps than it did because they just shot themselves in the foot so much. I've watched that drive in that game twice in the last couple of weeks, and I don't end up any happier. I've taken some positives out of it, but I don't end up any happier about the missed opportunities. What's his specialty? Chris Harris is the coverage linebacker as he's the run stopper leader. I disagree with you there. Christian Harris ideally would be the coverage linebacker, but he hasn't been great in coverage. So that's the ideal. That's the hope. That's the dream. But he still has to improve on what he did. Very promising what he did in the second half of 2023. But I don't think he's like the coverage linebacker. Henry has admitted both not the best in pass coverage and not the worst run defender. So what is EJ Speed? EJ Speed, I think you must have joined us a little bit later. He's very much like the current Texans linebackers. He'll play versus the run. Really, really good versus the run. He's just kind of sketchy as a coverage linebacker. So he fits the mold of everything the Texans have right now and doesn't necessarily fill in a lot of the gaps. But there's room for upside with especially Christian Harris and especially EJ Speed, I think, as coverage guys. I want to get to this. Let me pull off. Okay. Let's see. Games look. All right. There is a YouTube channel called Big Brain Football, and I don't know how I stumbled across this video in which he did a breakdown of the Texans defense, but I really, really liked it because he put a lot of time into the video editing. It's really impressive stuff that I wish I knew how to do or had the time to do, but it was really good, and I thought he caught on a lot of the nuances of the Texans defense. So I just want to show you a few clips. There's a link in the description below. Here, I'll put this up. You can watch these on, but just a really good view of like what makes some of the Texans players and what makes the defense pretty remarkable. We'll start off with a play that I broke down a couple weeks ago. He just does it with much better graphics right here. This is on the Texans disguising and mixing up their blitzes.
2 interior defensive linemen stunting inside, and a walked-up linebacker who's going to wrap all the way around to the opposite B-gap. And as we let this play, we see it works very well. They get good penetration and end up with a sack. But as we transition to this next play against the Bears, we're going to see a very similar look with a cool twist. Because when we pause this at the beginning of the play, it looks like we're getting the exact same action. But instead of continuing to the front side A-gap, now 97 is going to become that backside B-gap wrapper, and the linebacker is now going to wrap to the front side C gap. And this misdirection causes the offensive line to lose track of 97, leading to a sack.
And I want to show you one more thing about this, and this is what I broke down the other day. This is where blitzology comes into it, and I was really lucky to have played for Dom Capers because when it came to designing blitzes, it's so much more than just the X's and the O's. It's everything else that comes in between.
Because when
let me turn this volume down so we don't hear both of us. So if you watch the defensive end coming inside, like right there, he's taking a hard step towards the B gap, and that offensive guard is focused on him. 97 is hitting hard to that A gap. They're selling it, and then by the time they come, where is it going? Is that locked up for you guys? There we go. Come on. Don't do this to me. Oh, you're a son of a bitch. You're a son of a bitch, StreamYard. I've always known. Oh, I see why. Okay, so he's taking that hard step upfield, and the nose tackle is taking a hard step towards the center to get them in that fight. They're in fight or flight mode. They're like, all right, this is my guy. But then when you see them come inside, Barnett takes the tackle with him, and by the time he reacts to it, it's too late. And then Mario Edwards really does a nice job. This is key too. He keeps a tight radius on the corner. A lot of times the young defensive players like me, when I missed a sack my rookie year, you get all excited, you see all that open space, and you just run into the wide open space. Mario Edwards, savvy veteran, just comes around, keeps it tight, gets the sack on Caleb Williams, one of 478 he would have that year. Next one, Danielle Hunter. Really like the graphic and the thing he did with this. It's like the pitch tunneling graphics you see with pitchers.
Techniques is this arm drag where he controls the outside arm of the tackle with his left hand, rips his inside arm through to the outside tricep of the tackle, and then pulls himself around the edge. As a counter move, he uses this inside spin where he rips his inside arm through like he's going for the arm drag and then spins back into the B gap. And when we overlay these two clips on top of each other, we see just how similar these moves look to an offensive tackle. He takes a hard jab step inside, he rips the inside arm through, and at this moment, he can either decide to spin back into the B gap or drag the outside arm and continue around the edge.
So the cool thing about Danielle Hunter is I think a lot of times people, when they watch pass rushers, I think a lot of people have an appreciation for the guys that are good at their various moves. And some guys do really, really well with two bread and butter moves, but that look very similar. And it's like a pitcher that has two pitches and that's enough. And then you've got other guys that have 6 or 7 pitches in their arsenal, and they're artists with all of them. That's what Danielle Hunter is as a pass rusher. That's not what Will Anderson needs to be. But the thing that Will Anderson can take from it is that importance on everything looking the same. And a lot of young pass rushers, the mistakes they'll make when they start to try to add an arsenal is they think of a move as, oh, okay, it's a counter move. So I'm going to hit him with an arm drag, and then I'm going to spin under. And it's not. It's a lot more like jazz music. It's like it's improvisational as you go. Danielle Hunter probably has times where he has a plan because a guy is oversetting on him and he knows he can hit him with a spin move. But a lot of times it's you hit that first move and that's what you're planning on. But the muscle memory, because you've drilled it so much, is that you get to a certain spot and, oh, nope, you feel it. It's time to spin back. That's what Danielle Hunter is so good at, is just making things automatic to the point where it looks like a choreographed dance, and it's not. It's just him reacting to the situation. He knows what his first move is going to be. I mean, this is what it's like for most of the great pass rushers. And for a guy like Will, it's really good to have Danielle around because I can just remember, like I wasn't a pass rusher, I was a run stuffer, but I watched guys work and I got tips along the way. The biggest lesson is always, no, commit to your first move. You're going to beat him with a speed rush. The counter comes when, the speed rush isn't there and your body just automatically hits it. I think Will's gotten a lot better at that, hitting a sequence of moves, because usually most sacks come on either your second or third move. It's rare that a guy just dusts somebody around the edge. And if they do, it's also because they've set things up earlier in the down. That part of Danielle Hunter's game is where having Danielle in the building is, I think, a lot more valuable than having Jonathan Grenard when it comes to how do the young guys see and what do they learn from them. Because look, you could say, if you're a Vikings fan, you could argue that the Texans were stupid to let go of Jonathan Grenard and bring in an older player and pay him as much money when Jonathan Grenard is so young. I get it 100%. And they're not wrong. I think the tutelage part of it is big. And I think it helps just having guys like that. They've done a really good job of surrounding Will Anderson with veteran players. They've had at least 3 guys in the D-line room who are in their 30s at any given time. And I think it still remains that way right now. Mario Edwards, obviously not as much of an edge rusher. Danico Autry, Barnett's got to be in his 30s, right? Next one from Big Brain Football. This was an explanation of one of the Tua Tagovailoa interceptions that I feel like it lets Tyreek Hill off the hook a little bit, because some people have blamed Tyreek Hill for not adjusting to this route, when in fact it was Tua Tagovailoa not realizing that the Texans had duped him with their disguised coverage.
Running glance route with Tyreek.
So they're going to be talking about the Texans right now. They're it looks like a cover 3. You got the deep free safety and a couple cornerbacks there on other side. So it looks like the soft spot in the coverage is going to be up underneath the free safety.
Kill into this same space that Zay Flowers caught the ball. But the catch is the Texans aren't running cover 3. They're running an inverted Tampa 2. So instead of peddling, that middle of the field safety is going to sit down right in that zone with his eyes on Tua and jump this route for an interception.
And it's really one of the things where Tua, one of the things he's struggled to adjust to, and I think the Texans brilliantly used it against him, is that the pre-snap look isn't what you're going to see after the snap. And he's really, really comfortable and incredibly fast at getting rid of the ball when he knows what coverage he's seeing. If you can make it murky, it gets tougher for him. And the Texans had set him up with that earlier in the game with a cover 3 look, but then also in previous games where at times they'd allowed stuff up underneath. My excitement about this is that this is something that they can build on. They're doing that last year with 2 rookies in the secondary. Jalen Petrie, who wasn't on the field at that point because of his injury. Jalen Petrie playing in his role for the first time. The amount that they'll be able to disguise in some of the little head games that you got to be careful with when you got a lot of young guys back there who are just trying to get their head straight and their eyes right. They're going to be able to do a lot more of that this year. And for whatever teams have figured out about the way the Texans defense operates, they're going to be able to add those wrinkles to counteract that. That part's really cool. I like that Big Brain Football added this just because this is an underappreciated and sometimes forgotten element of physical linebacker play that I know D'Amico Ryans has not forgotten about.
Speaking of violence, that's exactly how he deals with offensive linemen. Watch how he punches and extends on this offensive guard and gets back into the hole to make the tackle.
Yeah. The stack and shed has really become like a forgotten about or little cared about skill when people evaluate draft prospects. I blame Ray Lewis because once people saw Ray Lewis not have to engage anybody at all because he was so fast, people started dreaming of that and various other great linebackers. But this is beautiful. Just, boom. You know how embarrassing that is for that offensive lineman? I mean, it's a guy that you outweigh by 50, 70 pounds. Just popped your head off like a Pez dispenser. Look at this. Pez. I Pez'd you. It's a verb. Azeez Al-Shaair. I missed the music, the jaunty music. Azeez Al-Shaair, I'm excited about coming back and being healthy. And hopefully, despite all the coverage things that we've talked about with the linebackers and where they struggle in pass coverage, it's manageable as long as guys are dialed in and doing what they're supposed to be doing. And as long as the guys in the secondary are playing as well as they are, there's really no replacement for just that level of football violence. It's so beautiful. Other thing that I'm glad that Big Brain Football noticed was this under, I guess, less heralded defensive lineman that if you weren't watching the Texans last year, wouldn't have realized he made as many big plays as he did.
Shout out Tim Settle Jr. because when I was watching this film, this guy was making a ton of plays, including this one against 9-time All-Pro offensive guard Zach Martin, where he throws him by so hard it looks like he's got food poisoning.
I don't like that. I don't appreciate the fart sound. Kind of gross. But we should also point out that Zach Martin I think that was the game where Zach Martin decided it was time to retire. He was banged up and hurt. Tim Settle had some really good plays against other healthy offensive linemen. When we talked to Nick Caserio, or he either brought it in a press conference or when he was on with us with Payne and Prendergrass, he said that Tim Settle just had to get his weight under control last year. And my first impression of him during camp last year was, wow, that is a big dude who can move. He has really got a lot of wiggle to him for a guy his size. And I remember talking to Caserio about it, and I think it was off air. It was when we were waiting to interview him. And I was like, man, Settle can really, really move for a big guy like that. And I could sense that Caserio wasn't all in on me being as bullish about Tim Settle. And I guess what it was they felt like he just needed to lose weight. And remember, he missed a lot of time during training camp. If he can get his weight under control, that might end up being a low-key, really brilliant signing because he made some big, big plays for him last year. You are always the happiest when talking about football violence. Right. Football violence, like D'Amico. D'Amico looks happy, and he's a solid citizen, unlike me. Hold on, let me get rid of the big brain. Let me get rid of the very ambitious title of Big Brain Football, by the way. I don't know if I'd have the guts to call myself that. So talking about Danielle Hunter, the tutelage becomes a force multiplier in Hunter's favor over Grenard. It's interesting. I think if you look at those two moves, which were big moves by the Texans, bringing in Danielle Hunter. And remember, they had no plans to bring in Danielle Hunter. They had already signed Danico Autry, and they didn't even know if Danielle Hunter would perhaps be interested in the deal that they eventually gave him, which was a 2-year, almost fully guaranteed contract. Danielle was all about it. So they very much left at that opportunity when it showed up. I think they're between Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson. That's the evidence of the Texans and Caserio and D'Amico Ryan working together to really identify what is football character, what are the intangibles we want on the team, and really just going out and getting guys who are the ideal versions of that. I mean, if Will Anderson wasn't the person that he is, there's no way they should have traded up for what they did. It was everything on top, everything that people in Alabama were saying, everything that you saw on film, the way he played, and all of that other stuff. That was a lagniappe that made you feel like, okay, it's worth trading up to get this guy because we feel great about him. They've done a really good job in that defensive line meeting room. I'm jealous of. It looks like fun because I think all those guys deeply, deeply care about doing it the right way. And that's hard to find. There's sometimes you might be surprised. Sometimes there's guys who are selfish and only care about sacks and whatnot. It's true. It exists. Hunter teaches Anderson what Grenard couldn't as a vet. Don't get me wrong. I loved Grenard, but I think this would be better for Anderson long term. I agree. I agree. The title. That was the big brain football comment. That's why you had said big brain football. Let's see. I'll be honest with you. I did not notice Tim settle well in any of the OTA stuff. I think the reports on his body were that he looked good and trimmed down, I believe. You guys can fact check me on that. I think you will see a different defense this year because D'Amico has more weapons. CJ Gardner-Johnson, I would agree, specifically. Christian Harris, if he can be healthy. I think one other thing that Christian Harris brings, aside from just potentially, really, if he can realize his potential in pass coverage, that brings an element that the Texans are missing. But also in the first half of last season, they were not in their base 4-3 alignment hardly at all. They played with 2 linebackers or less most of the first half of the season. That's what most teams do these days. They're in nickel way more than they're in base. But there are times where you'd like to have some hosses up there and you'd like have to have a heavy front 7 to stop the run. And I think they just didn't have enough guys that they trusted to do that. I mean, the linebacker room was really banged up a couple of times with injuries or suspensions between Toa and Azeez Al-Shire. So the ability to actually line up in 4-3, I think EJ Speed gives you that potential too, to just line up in 4-3, have speed demons all over the place, but who also are really good at playing the run. Like Christian Harris and EJ Speed, if they're in the backfield and it's nickel, then you might lose a little bit in some respects, but if they're playing pass coverage the way I think they're physically capable of, and maybe they just haven't been coached the right way. EJ Speed's coach in Indianapolis was Richard Smith, who I've never been a huge fan of, and yet I'm told he's a good linebackers coach. We'll see. Yes, and is Christian Harris playing this year? That's the question. D'Amico says he's ready to go. We've heard this before, or D'Amico said he's scheduled and he'll be ready to go. We've heard this from various coaches before when maybe they're optimistic about a player, but he wasn't out there during OTAs. He wasn't participating. I mean, he was playing. It wasn't like it was a contract hold. Excuse me. He wasn't playing, but he was out there. It wasn't like he was holding out or anything, but he just wasn't out there getting action during OTAs. All right. Jalen Noel. I want to be sure. I know I haven't gotten to all these, but I'll get to some later. And thank you for noticing how happy I am when I talk about football violence. Oh, let me do a little bit of, let me answer a question and while I redo some of these videos here. Let's see. A couple of you have asked questions about guys they should go out and get. Let me, you know what I do? I'll filibuster about this. Somebody asked, I can't find it. Somebody had asked about which players they might pick up. I would be really surprised if anybody that they pick up right now is Jair Alexander or Jalen Ramsey. Jalen Ramsey's got like a $20 million cap hit. And Jair Alexander, yes, he's a great player. There's just too many reports about, and yes, I will be on Stressin soon. I've not checked my DMs, but yes, I'll be on there. I talked about you earlier this live stream. So what was I talking about? Jair Alexander, a lot of reports that in Green Bay they were frustrated with his unwillingness to play through injury. And that doesn't sound very Swarm-like. I also don't like that he kind of talks like Jalen Green. And not that I'm holding that against Jalen Green as a player, obviously. I think Jalen Green, did some great things this year. I just don't. I don't need the mumble rap. I want somebody that talks like they're about to go out and either win an election or inflict some football violence on people. Okay, so this will be, as I pull these up, a couple of the answers from the St. Brown podcast with Jalen Noel. And I know that you guys have a lot of, I know everybody's intrigued by his bench press, so I'm going to put that first. He also did a question about, I know, listen, everybody, this isn't one of my technical glitches. This is just the streaming software. They only allow me to have 10 videos on here at any one time, and I'll cut this up as a standalone video later. There's a question about his first big purchase that I really liked because it hinted at a financial responsibility. And I'm always stressed out on behalf of these guys and their parents when it comes to, are you managing your money properly? Are you understanding that you won't make this money for the rest of your life? And what are you doing to not blow it all right away? So he had a really good question there. He had an answer to a combine question that he gave a better answer on than I would have as a 50-year-old. I totally would have botched it. So we've got that in there. He had a couple of answers that wouldn't be popular in Houston, except that he's so likable. So I'll put those last after I establish how much I like this kid. He actually had like 4 questions. He had about 4 answers or things he said in here that if you wanted to hate him, you could use it as evidence. It starts with him being a Chiefs fan for one. Although he said the right thing and said, no, I'm not a Chiefs fan anymore. I grew up a Bills fan. As soon as they didn't take me in the draft, they were dead to me. Dead to me. Oh, yeah, Toa. I should have brought that up. Oh, Alexander signed with the Ravens. Okay, thank you. So he's definitely not. Oh, crap. All right. The Ravens signed him. I'm wrong on everything I just said. Damn it. He's going to go Kyle Hamilton on our ass. All right. If the Ravens signed him, I got to. Oh, damn it. Everything I just said is probably bogus and crap. Crap. Thank you. All right. So the Dynamic St. Brown brothers have a podcast called the St. Brown Podcast. They had Jalen Noel, rookie 3rd rounder from the Houston Texans on. And I got to tell you, you'd have to work to hate this kid. This is an eminently likable kid. I call him a kid. I know he's a man, but he's a rookie, damn it. But I think he's got his head on his shoulders. Just a few of these. I know a lot of people are intrigued by this guy he's an undersized wide receiver, and yet he had a very impressive bench by wide receiver standards. Or honestly, just an impressive bench regardless for especially an undersized guy at the combine. Here is one of the St. Brown brothers asking about his 23 reps at the combine.
For me, 20 was like, damn, but 23, how much do you weigh?
I weigh 195 right
That's
now.
nuts. Like, yeah. Were you practicing? Were you like repping it out a lot before?
I mean, I'm always been like a big like weight room guy.
Right.
Like, actually, you was talking about earlier how your background with the weight room and stuff. But it's just always something that I get. It's like joyful for me. Like I'm in the weight room. I'm trying to be competitive with other guys, pushing other guys. But it's something that I always like. I knew I'd get a lot of reps, but I didn't know like 23. My goal was like 25. Receiver record was like 27.
Really?
But didn't get too much sleep the night before. After the combine. I'm sure you knew exactly how that felt. But it's a lot that goes into it. They be having them fresh weights. The bench is weird. So
it's heavy, a little heavier.
Yeah, it's a little heavier. You go in
My
there.
adrenaline was pumping.
Dude, ain't nothing shaved off the weights.
Right.
No. But
Yeah, I'm so glad he mentioned that last part there. I had forgotten about that. It sucks. It does. You get in there at the combine, you get under it, and you're like, well, hey, what the hell? And there is something to you working out in your own gym. Some of the weights have lost a little bit of weight over the years. They're not right. They're not 45 pounds exactly. And then the bar is stiff because it's a brand new bar. The knurling is biting into your hands. And it feels a little wrong. And everything they said about the adrenaline maybe sometimes giving you a boost, it feels like the fresh equipment and everything else kind of negates it. As far as him not getting sleep the night before, I don't want anybody to worry and think that he was out partying. It became very obvious in this interview that he is not a partier. He's got a fiance and he just likes hanging out at home and cooking and everything. We know that him and Jaden Higgins like to fish. He's a freshwater fisherman, so he's going to learn about saltwater, hopefully in Houston. It's a very good interview. I've got a link below so you can check that out. But the not getting sleep the night before, that's the other part of the combine that sucks. And I know you've seen people talk about this before probably, but by the time you get to the workout part of everything, it's so non-ideal. And that's why people hate it. It's not the turf is slow or anything like that. It's just that you're tired and you're just thinking, man, this is when I should be getting up and just feeling the best I ever have in my life. But by the time you're benching, you've talked to 20 different teams, you've been through 5 different physicals because they won't let you do just one physical. You got to go 5 different places. That part of it sucks. The fact that he got 23 reps is very impressive. I'm usually not impressed by weight room stuff because a lot of times the strongest guys are not strong on the football field. They've just got strength and nothing else. With Noel, it's obvious that he's fast too. But when you think about stout slot receivers, and he will play on the outside also. It's not like he's going to be exclusively in the slot. I think of like Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs was a rocked up dude. When you see him in person, I saw him in person for the first time. I was like, oh, that's not. Yeah, when he's standing next to tall wide receivers or, obviously next to offensive linemen, whatever, he doesn't look that big, but he's stout and you got to be built to take a lot of damage over the middle. That part I like a lot. I love this kid. I already liked him from interviews I'd watched with him before, but now I really like him. In regards to him you're going to love this answer. Okay, they asked him, what is his first big purchase?
Signing bonus that you're getting. What's your first purchase? Like, what's your first big purchase?
Oh, man. If I don't get like a furniture deal or something, I'm going to get some nice furniture.
Okay.
Furnish the crib.
So you're getting a crib, though. That would be, you're buying a crib.
Renting.
Okay.
Renting. I won't buy until a second contract.
Right.
But yeah, I guess crib, go into it, some furniture.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep my little Toyota Camry for a little.
You got a Toyota Camry?
Yeah, 2021, red interior. So,
That's
it's good
Nah,
enough.
I respect that.
Point B.
That'd be tough.
Yeah.
A 2021 Camry, and he's sticking with it. I had many of you might remember Tony Brackens, really good defensive end from the University of Texas, played in Jacksonville. Tony was driving his Cam, as he called it, and it was an old Camry. I mean, I don't mean old because it was 1997 and everything was like, no, it was from a few years prior. It was one that he'd had since high school. And he was still driving his Camry. Saw no need to get a new one, and he was single. So it wasn't, Jalen Noel's got a fiance coming up. He doesn't have to impress anybody. And I know Camrys have kind of amped up their game in the last couple of years. I like that a lot. Yes, I get it. The ideal answer is like a 1985 Ford pickup, but whatever. He's got a modest car. He's not even going to buy furniture if he can get a deal. These guys are so savvy now because of NIL. I don't know, like getting a furniture deal. I think rookies used to think about like, oh, maybe someday I'll be good enough to get a shoe deal or endorsement or something. He knows that he can go out and get I love it. He's going to find it's not as easy in the NFL to get some of these nice little deals from local vendors and whatnot because he's going to learn real quick that all those NIL deals have nothing to do with good business sense. It was just a way for people to give a boatload of money to their players like a booster. But he's not looking to make a purchase on a house too. There's a big one. He wants to establish himself. And as we know, buying a house is a great long-term investment. If you're going to live in it, ends up just being really good for a lot of different reasons. If you're only going to be in a place for 3 years and then you have to sell it, even if you make a paper profit on it, the amount of upkeep and everything you put into it, God forbid you put a pool in it or something. There's a lot of things rookies don't know. They buy a huge house with way too much square footage for every damn first cousin to come and stay with you for way too long. Just live in a condo. Kevin Durant lived in a condo up there in Oklahoma City the entire time he was in Oklahoma City. You just keep it. That's good. I like this. This is the other part of that question that I think some people might not appreciate was the very tail end. They asked him, "Oh, okay. Well, you're planning on you're going to settle down there?
Going back, like living there for the rest of your life?
Oh, wait. Nah. They're asking if he was planning on going back to Kansas City.
Plan on going back, like living there for the rest of your life?
Nah, I'll probably get a place in like Dallas or something. My fiance's from Dallas. So,
yeah, that's better.
Yeah, okay, he saved himself there at the end. First, randomly, honestly, I heard the first part. I'm like, wait a second. Out of nowhere, Dallas out of nowhere. You're just planning on getting a place in Dallas. His fiance is from Dallas. That's cool enough. I can live with that. Ideally and preferably, this would be what happened. 1, he's awesome for the Texans. 2, he falls in love with the city of Houston as well as his wife. And they decide, nope, we've got roots here. We've been here 15 years. Our kids are in school. We're staying in Houston. And then 3, at some point, he might realize that that's not always living in close proximity to your in-laws. It's not always. It's just, it's. I gotta watch myself here. So next one. Oh, this was what I was impressed with, the maturity. I would have botched this question. They asked him if he had any of the really weird combine questions that you heard about. Those have fallen by the wayside a little bit now that teams are getting skewered for asking the really stupid questions. So they asked him about the weirdest question he got at the combine.
Question that kind of threw me off the most is like, what do you dislike most about football?
Right.
And so that made me think.
So they're trying to fuck you. Like,
they trying to.
What'd you say?
Nah,
they asked me that
hate
too.
losing. That's
I said injuries.
Injuries, and that's a real thing.
Yeah.
Those are good answers. I would have overthought that for sure. I would have ended up throwing up one of my old buses under the bus or one of my old coaches under the bus or something. I don't know. I can't have. I'm too petty. I think I probably would have come up for that. And I was probably prepared for that one at the time. But it is a really good one. If usually I think a lot of those combine questions are dumb, but if they ask you, what do you hate about football or what's your least favorite thing? If you don't know enough to know that you should answer diplomatically, that's a red flag. Just by virtue of you not realizing like, oh, wait a second. Yeah, they want me to say something that's actually a positive. I'm a people person, that type of thing. My biggest weakness is that I care too much. So the fact that a lot of guys, I'm guessing, get asked that question, and then they do say, man, the coach we had the first 2 years was just a jerk. He yelled all the time. And no matter how accurate it is, you don't want to give that answer. There's advice for you kids out there, too. When you're in a job interview, be really, really careful about bashing your previous bosses, because the interview is looking at it as, oh, he'll be bashing us someday. It doesn't matter whether something's true or not. Not every truth needs to be spoken. Okay. This is the one. This is fun. And I hope you guys are going to be able to see the picture. They played a game called You Don't Know Ball, where they show pictures of various players, the headshots, and the interviewee, Jalen Noel, is supposed to guess who it is. And he was doing really, really well until this one came up.
This is
He's getting hints.
So I'll give him 4 for 6.
This is a quarterback?
Can I see? Yeah.
That's a quarterback. No, I'm not going to get his name.
Heisman winner.
Heisman. He played for Texas.
Yeah.
Yes.
You got to get this one.
I do got to get this one.
Beat USC national championship.
Yeah, I don't know who he is at this point. I knew he played for Texas. Where you were, number 10?
Yep. Vince Young.
Yeah, Vince Young. That's on me.
And he felt bad about it. I don't know if he knows that Vince Young is from Houston. I hope they have a laugh about that. I think I'm sure somebody's going to show that to Vince Young at some point. But it is also, man, it's a reminder of, wow, that was a long time ago. We're pushing almost 2 decades since then. And Jalen Noel would have just been a little baby. And to be fair, too, he was wearing an Eagles jersey, which you just don't associate him with that Eagles jersey. And he doesn't have a quarterback face in a lot of ways. So I give him a pass on that. But I feel bad that Vince Young is old enough that this is like a bygone era, that Vince Young's time except that at least Jalen Noel did know that he played at Texas and that there was a national championship involved at least. There we go. I'm not that old. I still assume the world knows Vince Young. I know. But Vince Young is a Houston institution. And he grew up in Houston, played for Texas, did a Heisman Trophy, national champion, all that's national championship. And I think I'm going to give him a pass on that, in that he did recall that he played for Texas. If he had just said, oh, yeah, I remember that, wasn't that the guy that played for the Eagles or something like that when he's a little bit older? I think Jalen Noel he actually watches football. They did a little bit where they were asking him about the various receivers too. And I'm 100% satisfied in that interview with Jalen Noel. The link is in the description below, so you can check that out on the St. Brown podcast. These are some of these questions. And I know, man. I know. Oh, good point. If you show you can keep secrets during the interview, they may hire you to keep secrets. It's true. It's so hard. I look back to when I was taking a free agency visit once, and looking back on it, I talked some smack about a coach that it could have blown up in my face, but the guy I was talking to hated the same coach that I hated. So we bonded over it, because this was an all-time idiot coach. And we were like, we ended up telling stories about what an idiot he was for a while. So I rolled the dice on that one, and just being honest. I was at a point in my career too where I wasn't even sure I still wanted to play football, because I'd been banged up and injured so much. So I was letting my freak flag fly. Some people would say him not buying a house means he's already unhappy and wants to be traded. Yes, there will be somebody who will spin it that way. I think the one thing that there was an answer he gave that I really liked when they asked about his first impressions of Houston. And he said something about how it's big, man. Like, he looks at Kansas City, where he's from, is kind of like a mid-sized city, which is accurate, but it has almost a small town feel to it. You don't get any kind of you don't get a small town feel in our suburbs anymore, depending on which suburb you're in. You get a mid-sized city feel in our suburbs, in some of our suburbs. I think the biggest thing that I remembered when I came to Houston at the first was, I lived up in the Northeast. I lived in Florida. And Jacksonville is more deep south than it is like your typical Florida city. It's more like it's got a South Georgia feel to it in a lot of ways, and it's a small city. When I got to Houston, my first thought was, this feels a little bit like the best of both worlds, because it's not slow paced like the deep south, but people are friendly like it's the deep south. And it's not going to be as friendly as you're sitting on somebody's grandma's porch in Alabama or something, but it's slowed down, but people are friendly. They say hi to strangers, all of that stuff, but there's still a certain energy to it that I felt like suited my personality more. And then the other part about Houston, that even people who've grown up, especially people who grew up in Midwestern cities and then come to Houston, are, I think, a lot of times blown away by like how many the extreme diversity of it. And yes, within living areas, there's pockets of homogeneity, but there's also a lot of places in the city and in some of the suburbs where, man, it's like scenes from my first thought when I first got to Houston was, this is like the scenes from movies where there's like people from all different races just getting along well together, but like in a way that I don't think really exists in real life. I got to Houston, I was like, oh my gosh, we're living in the movies. It was like, look at this. I got an Indian guy hanging out with a black guy who was talking to their white friend, and an Asian just walked in, and it was really cool. And then you get to meet people who grew up in all corners of the world. Like, there aren't a lot of places like Houston. You go to a lot of cities where, okay, there might be chunks of there's like, you've got different races, but by and large, people stick to themselves. And even it's the perception that somehow up north, it's some kind of racial Shangri-La where everybody loves each other. Like, yeah, just go walk into a diner in a small town in some pockets of up north when you're a minority and tell me how comfortable you feel. It's different. It's different in Houston. It's just, there's so many places you can walk in and just race is an afterthought. And a lot of kids, when you have kids in school, they grow up and go to school with kids with such an extreme amount of diversity that they just don't see color, I think, the way a lot of us and where we grew up might look at it. It's really cool. It's just it's a strange, really unique dynamic in Houston compared to a lot of other places. A hill I'll die on is that Vince Young would have gotten us to the promised land if he would have played for his hometown. Yeah, I don't want to. I think there were barriers to that. I don't know. It'd be a good. As I keep promising to have interviews on my podcast here, which I never get around to, mostly because I fear setting interviews up, because every time I set up an interview, I end up botching something technically or forget about what time the interview is set up. Did that just the other day. I've got to record an interview from an author that I like that got the notification from his agent at the time the interview was starting, like, hey, we good to go? And I was like, inside, I was like, no, I'm not. I forgot about this completely. And it was an all right interview, but I wasn't prepared for it. That's why I need a Sean Pendergast. I need Sean to be my producer. Let's see. That's who we did that one. Not going to lie, I want McCarthy to return to the Vikings. I don't mind seeing Caleb Williams having a better I don't mind seeing Caleb Williams having a better season this year. Let's see. Oh, okay, so that's two different conversations from something earlier, I'm guessing. I want McCarthy to return to the Vikings. I mean, he's going to start, right? I don't know what's going on there. Vince still not getting no respect from the Texans organization. Yeah. He'll probably end up buying a house. His fiance will make him because he can't decorate rentals the way you want. I don't know. The fact that look, Jalen Noel doesn't seem like the kind of guy who's like, listen, bitch, this is the way things are going to be. He feels like a pretty easygoing guy, and he's going to keep his Camry. I don't think that his fiance is probably necessarily, I get what you're saying about decorating a condo or an apartment versus a house. It's just good to, and their dream might also be, they might have plans on building a house up near her family or something, and that's where they'll put their money. So I'm good. What did I say? I did? I don't even remember. Oh, homogeneity. Okay. That's why you're invited to the barbecue, Seth. You're dialed in, brother. Thank you. I will attend your barbecue. The cookout. I had this thought the other day. I walked into, because I go into random places all the time, and I went into, there's a place up on, I want to say it was up on Waugh, and it was like a cigar bar type of place. So I was just going in. I had some time to kill. And I walked in, and I was like, oh, yeah. I am definitely the only white guy here, and I'm like I'm very accustomed to that. I was a defensive lineman in the NFL. I've spent a lot of time being the only white guy in a room, so I don't. It's what you notice it, you know. But it struck me. I can't remember when I first realized that. Like, it's a big difference between when you go to, like, when I was playing, especially, I might go out to, you know, I go out with the guys, and I'm the only white guy in the place, but I'm also around my friends. You know, so it's no big deal. But when you go in and you're the only white guy in a place, and you think like, I wonder if anybody in here has a problem with me being here or whatever. And it struck me like how distant, and how I will never ever know what it's like really to be a black guy sitting in a room full of white people, and especially if it's in some small town or something where that kind of thing doesn't happen all the time. That it's like I will never be able to fully empathize with that, and I'm somebody that's been in a lot of situations where I'm the only white guy in the room. So that's it. That's me trying to sound like I have empathy and care about stuff, and that I'm a responsible. I'll post something on social media that'll make me feel better about myself later. I never thought about the diversity between white and black defensive linemen. Oh, yeah. Listen, you got to have a thick. Now, the cool thing about, I wish I could tell some of the jokes. The cool thing about football teams is that, like, especially in the D-line meeting room, at least this was always the way it was with me. It was like, all right, you're going to, every now and then you're going to mess around and insult each other for fun. And yeah, every now and then you're going to get called a cracker, or somebody's going to make fun of you being white. But the cool thing is, when you're in a good environment, you can go back and forth. The issue people get into sometimes, they don't understand. You can only do that when you are actually tight with guys, okay? It's not the same unless you're a professional comedian who's really, really good at it. It's just not the same when you say it to a random group of other people. And where I first noticed this was sometimes when I would speak casually, to guys, like conversations I would have in the locker room about race or whatever, I might say something to a group of a group of white people I knew from Cornell or something that is like, honestly, would be no big deal saying it in the D-line meeting room, and they'd look at me like, well, so I didn't realize you were like that. I'm like, whoa, what? I just what am I? I'm going to deny the difference in the way we consume movies at a movie theater? What? No, just settle the hell down. Yeah, no, it's the cool thing too, though. Now, there's a thing about being a white guy on defense, especially, you get I think a lot of times when you have a coach or something that would say, like, I might make a great play, and the defensive line coach would be like, that's just, you know what, man? That is just blue collar grinder play. Seth's not much of an athlete, but like the black guys are the guys that'll stick up for you. They were like, hold on, coach. What the hell are you talking about? Like they would see it very clearly in terms of like, hey, wait a second. Or likewise, every now and then you get a guy that just has it in his head that he's going to blame everything on like he's going to try to win an argument by, like, say, accusing the white guy of being racist. It's the black guys on the team that are like, hold on, man. He's not him. Okay. Like that's like back off on that a little bit. It's probably, and it's the same way in the military, as I'm told, or at least people have said there's that similar vibe in the military. Sports in general, you don't see color. We're all brothers trying to achieve one goal. Yeah, it comes down to like, oh, okay. No, there's nothing but, dude, there's nothing better than being a white boy making a play. Like, I'm kind of like, I made play. You're like the water boy. Like, it's cool. Yeah, it was one of the best compliments. A guy, Jabari Threets, once said to me when I was a younger player, when I was first like starting to actually like make an impact, he was like, man, Seth, I've never seen a white boy play the way you do. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, screw whitey. Cracker asses. White deal. I'm usually strong as shit and a little bit psycho too. It helps to be psycho. I got in a fight once. This has turned into the podcast where I'd tell you compliments that black guys have given me. But I got in a fight once, and it became kind of legendary to the point it was in the locker room. And I got in a fight with a guy. Like, this is a point where like it made the rounds, because a guy came up to me who just thought I was going to be a little like a punk, and he sucker punched me, and then I beat him down. And we were talking about it. This happened when I was in the Jaguars, and it wasn't. I didn't beat him down that bad. I kind of subdued him. The story became that I delivered a world-class whooping, and it was nothing like that. I just kind of popped him a couple times, bloodied his face up, and then just held him down until everybody separated him. But like it turned into a lot more than that. So that was when I was with the Jaguars. I got with the Texans, and we were sitting around because there were a couple guys who had been on the Jaguars, and one of the guys from the Jaguars was telling the story. And who was it? It was an offensive lineman. I can't think of his name right now. Todd Washington said, man, he was an offensive lineman. He's like, man, never fight a white defensive starter. Never fight a white defensive starter. They're just too crazy. You gotta be a little psycho. Seth's stories are like stories about Larry Bird, but only 20% is epic. Yeah. I've got no. Yeah. The time that I put Jonathan Ogden in his place. There's none of that. That first one in, last one out, deceptively athletic. Oh, somebody said something about, I don't think I've ever seen a Mexican quarterback. Yeah, I want to be sure I get the name right, so I don't like misrace anybody. But the one that should be in the Hall of Fame is 100% Jim Plunkett. Yeah, Jim Plunkett. And Mexican players in general, not as many as there probably you think there might be or should be in the NFL or in football. Mexican American, excuse me. Yeah, Garcia from the Browns, Mark Sanchez. Tony Romo's grandfather was Mexican American, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember. We're all mutts here in America. Eventually we all become mutts. Oh gosh. Oh, I was supposed to be somewhere 15 minutes ago. Like, subscribe, whatever. Just come around when I'm live streaming. And then also, oh, thank God,